I used to come home with grease on my hands and sweat soaking through my shirt, and she'd barely glance up from her wine glass. I'd kiss her cheek, smell the faint citrus of her conditioner, and she'd scrunch her nose like I was something offensive. "Smells like a muffler exploded on you," she'd say with a laugh, waving her hand in front of her face. Every time, it chipped away at something inside me. She thought it was harmless teasing. Maybe it started that way. But after a while, it turned into something cruel. Something personal. I'm Nate Harlan, 41. Been turning wrenches since I was 20. Started out as a line mechanic, working under a guy who paid me in scrap parts and bad advice. But I stuck with it. Opened up my own auto shop by 32. It wasn't glamorous. It was honest. It paid the bills, gave me purpose, gave me something to build with my hands. Then there was Melissa. We met at a fundraiser dinner my buddy roped me into attending. She worked in marketing at this firm downtown. Sleek dress, heels that clacked like a gavel when she walked across the tile. She had this sharp smile that could slice through awkward small talk. I was just the blue-collar guy in a button-up from Kohl's, trying not to sweat through my collar. But she smiled at me. Really smiled. Said something about how refreshing it was to meet a man who worked with his hands. Said I had honest eyes. Back then, I thought she meant it. We dated for a year, married in 18 months. Moved into a condo on the edge of town that she decorated with minimalist art and color-coded mugs. She liked things neat, curated, aesthetic, she called it. I didn't care much. I just wanted to come home to someone who saw me. For a while, she did. She used to bring me lunch at the shop, joke with my guys, even wore my oil-stained hoodie one winter night, and said it smelled like me. I thought that was a good thing. But somewhere after year 3, something shifted. She got a promotion, started working longer hours, wearing sharper clothes, talking in buzzwords. She'd toss around phrases like Q3 deliverables and client-facing synergy like they were gospel. I'd tell her about a tricky engine rebuild I pulled off, and she'd just blink and ask if I wash my hands first. That's when the joke started. "Don't forget to change your socks before bed. I don't want the grease following me into my dreams. Careful with the couch, babe. That mechanic scent might sink into the leather." Then, the big one. The one that never stopped echoing. "You're lucky I don't care about status. Most women wouldn't marry a guy who smells like a carburetor." She laughed when she said it, like it was a punchline. But I didn't laugh. I remember that night because I just stood there, wrench still in my hand, watching her peel a mandarin at the counter like nothing had happened. And I realized she meant it. She didn't respect what I did. Not really. And I hated how much that mattered. The shop was doing fine, more than fine. I had 5 employees, a steady stream of loyal customers, and we were finally in the black. But none of that impressed her. She'd come home and talk about this C-suite, this, and executive-level vision, that, like we lived on different planets. I stopped trying to impress her. She stopped pretending I could. The disconnect grew. We stopped eating at the same table. I'd sit at the counter, she'd be on Zoom calls, always too busy for more than a wave. Our conversations became logistical. Who's buying groceries? Did you pay the HOA? What time is the dog's vet appointment? But the real kicker? She never brought me up. Not at work events, not in social media posts, not even in passing conversation. One of her coworkers, a guy named Darren, slick hair and a laugh like a car alarm, came into the shop one day. His Audi was leaking coolant, and he had no clue what he was doing. I helped him out, knocked off a few bucks, and when I told him who I was, his eyebrows shot up. "Melissa's husband? Man, she never mentioned you worked here." Never mentioned. I smiled, handed him the invoice, and walked back inside. But my stomach felt like it had dropped into the pit. That night, she came home late. Makeup still perfect, perfume sharp like lemon and ambition. I asked her straight out, "You ever tell people what I do?" She blinked. "Of course I do." "Really? Darren from your office was in the shop today. Had no idea you were married to just a mechanic." She sipped her wine. "I don't broadcast my personal life, Nate. It's not a secret, it's just not relevant." Not relevant. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't a partner in her world. I was a footnote. A detail she left out so her narrative didn't get too messy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat out in the garage, staring at the same tools I'd used to build everything I had. And I started thinking about worth, about respect, about how some people only see power in titles and clean hands. And I made a decision. I didn't confront her, didn't argue. I just started planning. See, While she was working 80-hour weeks climbing some corporate ladder, I'd been quietly stacking chips. The shop was profitable. I had 2 silent partners and a real estate guy who owed me a favor. I'd been toying with the idea of expanding into a second location. But suddenly, I had a bigger idea. A quieter idea. Her company, Hartley & Rowe, was a mid-sized marketing firm known for its polished branding work and laughable internal drama. Melissa was in charge of client relations, but the place had been passed around by investors for years. I did some digging, talked to my accountant, then my buddy from high school who went into finance instead of fixing cars. Turns out, the parent company that owned Hartley & Rowe was hemorrhaging money. The marketing firm was stable, but barely. A shell asset. A tax write-off for some holding firm in Chicago. And it was for sale. Quietly. Off-market. I made calls. Arranged meetings. Brought in a few investors who trusted my gut. And I played the long game. 6 months of paperwork, of pretending I was just Nate the Grease Monkey, while on the side, I was becoming majority owner of the same firm Melissa bragged about every day. And the day we closed the deal, she still had no idea. She came home that night rambling about a client pitch gone sideways. Something about color palettes and social metrics. I listened, nodded, even poured her a glass of wine. She never asked about my day. Never knew I'd just signed the paperwork that made me her boss. Not metaphorically. Legally. I didn't plan revenge. I planned a reckoning. Because here's the thing. It was never about making her feel small. It was about proving, to myself mostly, that blue collar doesn't mean bottom tier. That a man who builds with his hands can still own the damn building. I didn't tell her right away. I waited. Waited until the quarterly meeting. Waited until the board called for a shake-up. Waited until I could walk through those glass doors in a suit and tie and watch the confusion stretch across her face like sunrise on ice. And when I did, when she saw me at that long oak table, flanked by lawyers and new leadership, she blinked 3 times before whispering, "What the hell are you doing here?" I smiled, checking on my investment. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at the guy to my right, a guy she used to flirt with during lunch meetings, and he just nodded. Nate's the new majority partner. I didn't gloat, didn't raise my voice. I just watched her world rearrange itself in real time, like a puzzle she thought she'd solved, only to realize half the pieces were flipped upside down. That meeting? It was all business. I didn't say anything personal, didn't throw shade. But after, as she tried to catch up to me in the hallway, stammering questions, I turned and said, "You used to laugh when I came home covered in grease." Said I'd never be more than a blue-collar guy. I leaned in, voice quiet. Guess what? I bought the company. She didn't say anything, just stood there in her heels and pencil skirt, looking like a woman who'd just seen a ghost from her past show up driving the future. And that was only the beginning. I didn't expect her to quit. Honestly, I figured she'd stay and try to outlast me. That was more her style. Polished resilience. But Melissa didn't even last the week. After that board meeting, I didn't rub it in. I didn't call her out in front of anyone. I gave her the dignity she rarely gave me. I treated her like any other department head, cordial, professional, distant. Maybe that was worse for her. Maybe it was the fact that I didn't gloat, didn't try to explain, didn't try to justify what I'd done. I just owned the space like I'd always belonged there. For days after that meeting, she submitted her resignation. No goodbye, no confrontation. Just a forwarded email from HR with her formal notice and the little line at the end. "Please consider this my 2-week resignation, effective immediately." She didn't come home that night. The silence in our condo was deafening. I sat on the balcony, cracked open a beer, and looked out over the city. Same view I used to point at and say, "One day, maybe I'll own something that matters in a skyline like that." Funny thing is, I did. Not just a company. Not just her pride. I owned the space that used to make me feel small. Melissa texted me the next morning. "I think we should talk." No apology. No explanation. Just the start of a conversation she didn't know how to finish. I didn't respond. Not to be cruel. I just didn't have anything left to say. Because the truth is, by the time I bought that company, I didn't want her to respect me anymore. I didn't need it. I had learned the hard way that trying to win over someone who looks down on you is like pouring water into a cracked vase. No matter how much you give, it always leaks. She didn't love me for who I was. She loved me for who she thought I might become. And when she realized I wasn't going to change fast enough, she pulled back, inch by inch, smile by smile, joke by joke. until I became invisible in my own home. That week, I packed up the condo, sent her a message with a moving schedule and the property buyout options. Fair, professional, clean. I offered her the furniture, the art, even the espresso machine she loved more than me some mornings. She didn't fight me on any of it. I think she was still processing. Or maybe she was just too embarrassed to ask for anything. We signed the separation papers at a lawyer's office downtown. She wore all black like she was attending a funeral. I guess, in a way, she was. The lawyer, a woman named Judith with silver hair and zero patience, slid the documents across the table and asked if we wanted to talk before signing. Melissa looked at me. Her eyes were tired. Not angry, just worn down. I never thought it would end like this, she said. I nodded. Me neither. She chewed her lip. Did you do it to get back at me? I looked her dead in the eyes. No. I did it because I was tired of being underestimated. She didn't argue. She just looked away and signed the papers. And just like that, it was over. But here's the part no one tells you. After the storm, after the chess moves and the big wins, there's still quiet. There's still space. I moved into a small house on the edge of town. Not flashy, just a one-story with a wide porch and enough room for my tools and my silence. I started working more from home, overseeing operations at the firm while my shop ran with a new manager I hired. The guys at the garage call me boss man now. Not in jest. With pride. Respect. And the marketing firm? I didn't gut it. I listened. I brought in consultants, reshaped leadership, raised salaries for the junior team who had been grinding for years without recognition. The place changed. It got better. Leaner, smarter, kinder. Some of Melissa's old colleagues stayed. They didn't know the whole story, but word got around. I kept my distance, though. I didn't want to rule from the top like a tyrant. I wanted to lead like someone who knew what it meant to be overlooked. A few months after the dust settled, I ran into her. Grocery store of all places. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, just quieter. She was holding a basket, staring at a shelf of boxed pasta like it held the answers to everything. She saw me and froze. I gave her a nod. She gave me a tight smile. You look good, she said. Thanks. How's everything? Busy. She hesitated. I heard the company's doing well. It is. Silence stretched between us like rubber, ready to snap. Then she said, I was wrong about you. I didn't respond right away. Just looked at her for a long second. And when I finally spoke, I kept it simple. I know. And then I walked away. Not because I was angry. Not because I wanted her to feel bad. But because I was done shrinking myself to fit someone else's expectations. It's strange, the peace that comes after all of it. You spend so long trying to prove your worth, trying to fight back with action, success, power. And when you finally get there, you realize the person you were trying to prove it to never really mattered. Not like you thought they did. What matters is the way you sit in your own skin now. What matters is how you walk into a room without apology. What matters is knowing that respect built from the ground up holds more weight than any polished title or corner office. And me? I'm just a mechanic who bought a company. A man who got tired of being laughed at and decided to build a life no one could mock. A man who doesn't need to be seen by everyone, because he finally sees himself.